Hello everyone, we are live. This is Kaylin from Gamut, and we are going to be showcasing a brand new LUT that we launched. It's called Gamut Boost. This is not necessarily a creative LUT, then more so a tool that is in the form of a LUT. This is going to be able to give you a really great highlight retention and also a boost in the midtones, and then saturate all the right places. So this is a really unique LUT. I just wanted to show you guys what we are working with and what just came out today. If you're a Sony user, this LUT will help your footage drastically. Whenever we sent this out to some beta testers, we had some Sony users mention that because there's less contrast, less saturation in Sony footage usually, especially in shooting Cine 4 profile, then once you place this LUT on there, it gets it to a really nice balanced stage and really makes the colors pop and the footage really stand out. So if you're a Sony user, definitely check out this LUT as well. I'm going to go over some examples before. Also, you can check out on the website. We have it listed here, and this is kind of where we dial everything in and showcase some different examples. We show the LUT before adding anything, so just the boost alone, and then also with other LUTs. So you can mix this with your LUTs to create a really unique look. And I think that's what's really cool, is that you're going to be able to expand your LUT collection that you currently have. So if you have a collection of 4 LUTs, drop this in before the LUT, and now you have 4 unique looks, and you can dial that in with the different intensities. So let's go ahead and dive in and show you some of the settings and what we would recommend with using Gamut Boost. All right, here is some footage that we have with different cameras. We are in Final Cut Pro X. Also, I have some examples that we're going to be going over in Premiere Pro as well. So we'll be able to look at this in Premiere Pro for those Premiere Pro users. So know that I'm going to help you out there as well. But we're going to start in Final Cut Pro X and go through some shots and showcase what's really going on and kind of go behind this LUT and show you what's working. All right, so this is a shot that is straight out of camera that we have, and this I'm going to go ahead and look at. Here you can see this was shot on a GH5 with the natural profile, and we're not clipping anything on the highlights. We're very close to clipping with all these clouds, and then we are close to these black levels here. So we have a full contrast image all the way to the top, and you can see this blue spectrum right here. This blue range on the RGB parade is higher up, reflecting this sky. And once we're going to go ahead, we added an adjustment layer here, which you can get on our website at gamut.io. We have a free adjustment layer for Final Cut Pro X users. Dropping that in, and then I've already added the LUT. So if you're going to it, I have mine set up in this folder here, Gamut Boost, and then I'm going to enable that, and that's instantly added to it. So it makes the footage pop a lot more. You're getting a lot more saturation, but you're getting it saturated outside the scope of skin tones. So skin tones are slightly being saturated, but not heavily. And then also, so it's kind of like a vibrance slider effect, you know, from Lightroom, if you can think of it that way, but a little bit more control. So we choose the colors that we kind of push that kind of saturate those levels. So here you get before, then after. With these clouds, you're also getting more depth to them. And if you can look over at this RGB parade, you can kind of see where everything's being shifted. So you can see before and then after. So, and we're keeping the white levels right where they are, and we're keeping the black levels where they are. So we're not pulling down the entire highlight spectrum and just bringing that down. We're keeping it there. So we're taking the highlight level that's probably, I'd say we're taking probably around 60 IRE right here, all the way to the top, and we're just kind of protecting and bringing that down in a nice clean way that has given us more contrast in these highlight ranges. And then we're also boosting the shadows in the midtones, more so the midtones and the shadows. Shadows we're hardly touching to keep that contrast there, but the midtones we're elevating a little bit so that the skin pops and you're still getting a good exposure level from your footage. And then with the saturation together, you can just change the intensity of it, and overall it really brings the footage to life. Now, if we were going to look at some Sony footage right here, I will show you this is the shot before, and then here's a shot after. instantly adding the Gamut Boost. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I could just do this on my own. I can just add saturation and the shadows and then maybe the highlights and then pull down the highlights. But the problem is you don't get this kind of dynamic range of like feel that you're getting with this footage. And I'm going to kind of showcase why that is here in a second. But before and after, and now whenever we want to go ahead and add a LUT. So here, let's go ahead and add Dolce 2 to this shot. And we can, bring this intensity up if we want to. And you can see before and after. And if you take off the Gamut Boost, you're getting this image right here, which is, if this is your desired look, then this is a really great look. So Dolce 2. But then once you just add Gamut Boost before the LUT, automatically everything kind of sits into the right spot and then all the colors pop in a unique way. So I think that's what's really helpful about Gamut Boost, and you can dial down the intensity, say to probably 60 or 70% sometimes, or to taste. So just know that if you already are clipping your footage, Gamut Boost isn't necessarily pulling that part back. It is pulling some of that highlight information that is retained. But in this case, if you can see, it's already clipping, and we have some of the blue ranges fringing there in the highlights on this Sony footage. And so whenever you add this, it's going to, I'm going to take off Dolce 2, you're going to see that it's going to intensify a little bit of the colors because it's pushing the colors properly for proper exposure. So if you were to use this shot, I would definitely probably take out some of the saturation in the teal, which is part of that fringing color there in the sky. So if we go over here and you can see this shot, which is really nice, but obviously you're having a little bit of the water mist that's on the lens, which gives a nice unique feel here. But you also have this waterfall here, and you can see we're right at the top levels before we're clipping, and we have this information there. And if we're just going to add the Gamut Boost, we get more definition into the actual waterfall. So we're seeing more clarity into it. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this on your screen, but in the original file, you're getting more clarity in those highlight ranges. You're kind of getting a boost in the color. The skin tones are popping nicely, and it's not changing any of the hue information. So just know that Gamut Boost isn't changing the hues, it's only adjusting luminosity and saturation, but it's in a really nice, unique way. So that is something to consider. Now, if we go to this shot, I'm going to go ahead and disable it here. This shot was on a GH5 in the natural profile, and you see we have a lot of dark levels here, but we're not clipping. Right here, the skin, her skin is kind of elevated, and you can kind of see that is right about here. It's probably closer to this spectrum right here, so close to like 85. And skin tones, excuse me, skin tones we want to keep closer to like the 60th level, depending on the frame, obviously, but closer to 60 IRE. And so what I would probably do is, if I were to just grade this shot, I'm going to go ahead and go over to my color wheels in Final Cut Pro X, and I'm going to go ahead and bring down the midtones and then pull down some of these highlights until I'm getting closer to 60th a little bit if I want those skin tones to be there, and then raise a little bit of the shadows and kind of, so now we're getting closer to 70 a little bit. And so that whole range right there is, again, we want these skin tones to be the main form ones. And so here we're getting more in the range that we want. We don't want to blow out her skin tone level there. And so you can see before and after. Now, if we were to add a little bit of, highlight saturation there, and then a little bit of shadow saturation, and try to kind of recreate that effect using just the sliders or just the color wheels in Final Cut Pro X to kind of mimic the Gamut Boost, you're going to have like this image right here. Now, as you can see, what we had to do is we had to bring down the highlight levels to actually get this level down. If we were to do it, the midtones isn't really pulling it enough to kind of get it where we want to. And that's where Gamut Boost is taking over and helping out your footage. So I'm going to go ahead and disable the color wheels, and I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to go back up to my adjustment layer, and I'm just going to go ahead and intensify it to 100% and then enable it. And here we have this skin tone right here that is dropping in a nice way. It's actually a really subtle, the way the curve works on this is these where you're hardly having any saturation in the skin right here. You're getting more saturation in the highlighted range, but you're not intensifying the skin in the shadow range, which keeps the skin more consistent with saturation levels across. And that's where it kind of smooths out the skin per se. So here you have a little bit more warmer yellower skin here, and then here you have a little bit on a little bit more luminosity with her skin, and it's a little bit more pale. But if you were to bring it here where it's a little bit more pale overall, this automatically adds a nice boost to skin tone. So if you want really nice skin tones, you want a proper boost, then just throw on Gamut Boost and give that a little touch. And then obviously if you were to add, say, Dolce 2, you could play around with the intensity from Dolce 2 or any LUT or Gamut Boost. So in this case, maybe we want to go ahead and keep Gamut Boost all the way at 100%, and then maybe dial this to like 0.4%. And there you have a new look, just because we added this toolkit, this LUT called Gamut Boost. Now, if we wanted to change that, go 100% and then disable Gamut Boost. You can see here is what we have, and then we're getting this really great pop color. But maybe let's just dial this back, and then maybe let's dial Dolce 2 down. So maybe 0.8 might feel good, 80% there. And then let's see, probably closer to 0.7 with Gamut Boost. And there you have a brand new look. So here is just, you know, the shot that you have right here before and then after, and that's, we can also play around with, say, Dolce 3, which I know is going to pull in a little bit more of the bluer feel to it. But that with Gamut Boost, maybe I'm bump up Gamut Boost so I get even more vibrance in the skin tones. And here you get a really unique look. So before you have Dolce 3, which is a unique look, but you're more desaturated in the skin tones, and here you're going to make it pop, and you're going to control the midtones and highlight information. Now, if you're over in Premiere, we're going to go ahead and look at Premiere. Now here we are looking at these footage here. Now it's going to be a little bit different, so when I switch to Premiere, the image is already going to be a little bit more contrasted just because Premiere can't read my color calibration to my screen, so it's going to be displaying a little bit more contrasted than what the output will look like. So just know that. That's why it looks a little bit different from Final Cut Pro X. But if we were to take this shot, I've already added an adjustment layer, which you can easily do if you are over here in your project, and you can create a new adjustment layer with this icon. We're going to switch to lumetri scope so we can see everything here. Have the lumetri on this adjustment layer, and then we're going to go ahead to this creative tab, and we already selected Gamut Boost. You just go to browse and then find the file, Gamut Boost. And so here we can change the intensity of how we want this to affect. So what's unique about this is if you were to try to recreate this in Premiere, it would be somewhat along the lines using the basic correction where you're going to pull down, you know, some of the highlights to try to hold some of that information in the highlights, and then boost a little bit of the shadows, which is in the midtones, but it's pulling more of the range lower than I want to. And then you have to combat it with blacks and kind of go back and forth, and then go to your saturation and boost all of that up. Or you could also come down to the HSL secondary or even the curves. And in the curves, the hue saturation curves, here we could dial in just the saturation of shadows or just saturation of highlights. And the way we can do that is by choosing Luma versus Sat. So we're going to choose the luminosity level, so we're going to choose the darker range, and then we're going to saturate that. So here I'm going to put a point here, and then grab this point and just raise this up, and that's only going to saturate the darker ranges, which is going to be his jacket and some of that range. Because if we were to choose a range right here, which is more of the skin tones, you'll see skin tones become a little over intense, which is why we don't want to touch too much of the mid-tone saturation level. But over here we can also play with the highlight saturation and get some of more color into that sky slightly, and some of those other ranges as well. So this is more along the lines of something that would be trying to create it, but it's not going to give you the same effect at all because of the way we have dialed in this specific LUT. It's able to really recover highlights. We had to use a different type of transform, color transform space to actually make this work. And now we have it in a LUT form so that we can use it, which is really unique. So I'm just going to turn off the curves and then go back to the creative. I'm going to disable basic correction and then creative. And then this is the LUT that we have. So if you're in Premiere Pro, that is how you utilize, I can't even say the word, utilize Gamut Boost. All right, back to Final Cut Pro X. Just a couple more things I wanted to show you. Here I'm going to disable this whole effect. This is another shot that we had on Sony, and I just went ahead and set the proper exposure levels and saturation levels. Actually, just mainly the exposure levels and white balance. So before on this clip we had it here, and just brought down some of those black levels and the shadows and made sure everything was white balanced. And then once we come over here, and we're gonna throw on this Gamut Boost LUT and just make it shine. So one click, just enable it. I know things look subtle, but whenever you look at it closely, it's going to really help your footage. It's going to help you get the colors that you want. Here, we're getting way more color information in the highlights of skin tones without oversaturating the shadows of the skin tones. That's how we get a pleasing skin tone level. And you're boosting a little bit of the midtones while still keeping the contrast. So the black levels are still staying where they're at. The highlight levels are not changing hardly at all. Everything that we get is right in the middle, and all that magic is happening in the middle, and it's really transforming the footage. So here, Gamut Boost before and after, and then on this one we could probably throw, let's just say Dolce 2 on this one, and instantly you have another whole new look. So if you have a LUT collection that you've been working with, whether that's from our packages, from Gamuts, from Dolce or Timbre or Adagio or whatever it is, or if there's another pack that you have online, get this Gamut Boost LUT, because once you add this to your footage, it's going to help get you a whole unique look from your LUTs, which is really cool. But we have all of our Gamut LUT collections are dialed in to work with Gamut Boost so that they do work and they don't push the colors in an extreme way. So everything's dialed in and it works across platforms with Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro X, and it's working really well with all different types of cameras. So even here, if we're to look at something from, say, Vlog, here is a shot that we had where we have a lot of bright areas behind it, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to disable. Here we went ahead and added our free Vlog Gamut LUT that we have right now on Gamut. At this time it's free and you can pick that up. So here's Vlog on the Panasonic S1, and then I just went ahead and added a little bit extra highlight information, just boosted those highlights just because we were shooting a little bit less exposed there, so we had a little bit more headroom to work with. And then once we come over here and we're going to add just the Gamut Boost, so you'll see exactly what happens, which is really great. We're going to go ahead and add Gamut Boost. Bam. Automatically, these highlight area right here on this wall and on this mountain here comes back, and then we get better saturation levels in these clouds right here, and the blue sky pops. Before, you weren't even focusing on that cloud. Obviously, we want to focus on the couple, but you're getting this nice pop here and the reflection in the water now. It's almost as if this is like a polarizer that you've put on your footage. So a circular polarizer where it takes out the reflections in the highlight ranges of certain objects like leaves or skies. You get more rich contrast and more saturation back in. This is what Gamut Boost is doing. So this is really unique. You'll see before and then after, and then if you were to add another LUT, you get a really great look. So there's Dolce 2. We could even add, say, Lotus 4 probably on this one, and you're going to get all these really new looks that you didn't have before. Free the Bird. If you have Free the Bird, Gamut Boost should go hand in hand with Free the Bird. This one really makes things shine in a unique way, because if you look at it, this is Free the Bird 2. So I had this at about 75%, and then you just add Gamut Boost to it. Bam. Love this. Love this. This is awesome. So if you're Free the Bird, check out Gamut Boost. This one's going to be a game changer for that LUT collection for sure. And this is the thing. Gamut, here we're trying to make tools that help you elevate your footage and also help with color grading in your whole workflow and make it faster. So that's why we created Gamut Boost. It's more of a tool. We're going to be creating a few other tools and create more of a collection for you all to have, and then you can have your own toolkit that instantly transforms all of your footage, works in certain scenarios, but also elevates the LUT collections you currently have. And here is one of the last shots. This is a Panasonic GH5. Here we have no Gamut Boost. We don't really have much life in all these colors, a little bit desaturated. We have some skin tone there, but there's a lot of room to push and pull if we want to. Just add Gamut Boost, and instantly all the skin is nice and evened out. We get a little bit more highlight information. The dress has a little bit more detail and contrast in it now, so I think it just adds a really great look. And then you could even add Dolce 1. So Dolce 1 is another LUT that whenever you have it by itself, I'm going to show you real quick. So this one, Dolce 1, does pull down the highlights a little bit and kind of gives you a little more of that faded look. So maybe we're just going to set this to 0.8 for this look. And you'll see this is Dolce 1, which is still a good look, especially for more contrasted sensors or cameras like Canon. So if you were to use Dolce 1 with Canon and then you add Gamut Boost, bam, all of a sudden this looks really pleasing and you have a really good image. So Dolce 1 is a great starter pack as well. If you're shooting on Canon footage, you might want to dial Gamut Boost down less, because anything with more contrast and more saturation is going to be elevated with Gamut Boost, so you'll want to control that a little bit. With Sony footage, this is like must have. This is great for Sony footage, and then also for Panasonic, this adds a really nice touch to everything as well. So hopefully all that was helpful. And then one last shot that we're going to show in here from our good friends Jay and Mac. Awesome couple, if you can't tell right there. We were filming them at Venture Workshop a couple years back, and here we have a before and after shot. If we're to add just the Gamut Boost, you can see all this information. Yes, we are clipping a little bit. Actually, let's bring it back. It looks like we have some information up there. So I'm going to try to see if we can pull anything back, if there's anything left. And we're just going to dial back just a little bit. So obviously this is clipping over here, but we still get some information with this area. So they're in the complete shade. This is complete sun during sunset. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to add Gamut Boost and see what this does. All right. Immediately, I get more color and more depth in this. I feel like all of a sudden the shadows and midtones and contrast levels all even out, but still keep the proper saturation levels. And then anytime you want to add a LUT to this, let's say Dolce 3, then it's going to have a nice look to it. So instantly, I mean, you don't even have to use it a lot. I mean, like 50% on this LUT. And here's the before and then after. Again, subtlety is keen, and just kind of being gentle with your effects, not going over the top, but there is room to push it because we created it where you can push it harder if you want. If you want this more contrasted look, you have it. Without Gamut Boost, it's still nice. It's still nice, but once you add it, you get more. It's just, you just don't know why, but you can't live without it. Once we started adding it to our footage, I think it really helped us out getting the look that we wanted on multiple types of footage, because we could dial in, okay, this footage or this camera is a little bit desaturated. Here, Gamut Boost moves it in all the right spots, and so now it matches better with Panasonic, you know. And so adding this to different cameras, you'll get different results, but overall, I got a really clean look that I was really happy about. Again, that was kind of wanting to show you guys Gamut Boost, the brand new LUT that can really help elevate your footage. It's more of a toolkit than it is a creative LUT, but check it out at gamut.io. We're going to be putting together more videos and more tutorials, so make sure that you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel if you haven't already. If you want to know anything about what we're working with, if you want to beta test anything, because we are looking for beta testers as well, let us know and comment. Show us the footage that you're working with. If there's something that you can't color grade, or you're like, I just don't know how to make this look good, go ahead and fill out our submission form, which we'll leave in the description, but also we'll have in our Facebook group, and we will look through that footage. And whenever we do our color grading live on Thursdays, whether it's every Thursday or every other Thursday, we're going to let you know, and we can let you know whenever we are grading your footage so that you can tune in and see how we can work with it. So again, thanks so much for checking out our channel. Thanks so much for tuning in and supporting Gamut. Anything else that you ever want with our tools, just let us know, and we will see you next week. Later.